Okay, welcome in one and all. I'm a little behind, so I'll try to see if I can get caught up on my NHL scores. So, taking a look at Tuesday's action from the NHL, we had a grand total of 11 games, I do believe. Let me just quickly double check. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 games. I should apologize. So let's see if we can dive into this. This video might take some time. Starting with an all-Canadian matchup as my beloved Habitant. We're continuing the road trip in Edmonton to take on the Oilers for the second time this season. Now, keep in mind the first time these two teams played at the Bell Center, the game went into overtime, and then the Oilers did get the victory in this one. Let's take a look and see how this one unfolded. So in the first period, 9 minutes and 20 seconds into that frame, McDavid would get his 26th goal of the season from Mattias Ekholm, making it 1-0 in favor of the Oilers. In the second, Adam Henrique would get his first goal as a member of the Edmonton Oilers, recording his 19th of the season from Ekholm and Evan Bouchard. And that goal happened with 5 minutes and 5 seconds in that second period, I should say. In the third, Nick Suzuki would finally get on the board for the Montreal Canadiens, getting his 27th goal of the year from Slavkovsky and David Savard, just 32 seconds into that frame. Gouli would tie the game up 4 minutes and 43 seconds in that same period, getting his 5th of the year from Evans and Jordan Harris. This game would take till overtime to decide a winner. Now, the Oilers would be on a 4-minute power play. So pretty much if you give the Oilers a power play in overtime, good luck trying to hold on to that lead. And Leon Draisaitl would strike, getting his 34th of the year from McDavid and Darnell Nurse with 1 minute and 42 seconds remaining on the clock. So the Oilers had a 3-2 lead. They did blow it, but they were able to get the victory in the end. So with the win, the Oilers are 41-21-4. Still sitting second in that Pacific Division. As for the Montreal Canadiens, after this loss, they're 25-31-12. Alrighty, now we're off to New Jersey, I do believe. We have the Devils playing host to the... Hold on a second. Devils and the Penguins. Actually, you know what? Sorry, I'm going to scratch that. I'm going to do the Bruins and the Senators first. Alrighty, let's take a look and see how this game went as two teams from the Atlantic were duking it out. So in the first, Pastrnak would get his 42nd goal of the year, 8 minutes and 27 seconds into that frame, assisted by Gizerlik, if I pronounce that name correct. Oh my gosh. And Zaka, 8 minutes, 27 seconds into that frame. Pastrnak would then get his second goal of that game with 8 minutes and 37 seconds to go in the period, getting his second of the game, as I said, his 43rd of the year, 2-0 in favor of the Bruins after 20 minutes. Shane Pinto would cut the deficit to 2-1 with 6 minutes and 52 seconds to go in that second period. For Pinto, that'd be his 7th goal of the season from Giroux and Chabot, a power play goal to note. Speaking of power play goals, Brazeau would get his second goal of the season, assisted by Shattenkirk and Geekie, with just 1 minute and 9 seconds to go on the clock. Brady Tkachuk would cut the deficit to 3-2, getting his 31st goal of the year, assist by Chichurkin and Batherson, and that goal happened with just 4 seconds remaining on the clock. So the Bruins had a 3-2 lead heading in to the third period. Pastrnak would then complete the natural hat-trick, getting his third of the game, his 44th of the season from Shattenkirk and Heinen, 4 minutes and 43 seconds into that frame. Just 25 seconds after that, Boqvist would get his 5th of the season from Beecher and Shattenkirk, increase in lead to 5-2, and then Brazeau would get his second goal of the game late in that third period, a power play goal to note, assisted by DeBrusk and Geekie, and that goal happened with 1 minute and 54 seconds to go on the clock. So 6-2 would be the final score in favor of the Bruins. So with that, they are sitting at 41-14-15, well in the driver's seat to make the postseason. As for the Ottawa Senators, they're 28-35-4. Alrighty, the next matchup took place in Detroit. We have the Red Wings, and they were playing against the Columbus Blue Jackets. Alrighty, let's take a look and see how this game went. So in the first, Werenski would kick things off for the Blue Jackets, 5 minutes and 56 seconds into that frame, getting his 5th of the season. Texier would increase the lead to 2-0, getting his 11th of the year from Mawinski and Severson, and that goal happened with 6 minutes and 17 seconds to go on the clock. So after 20 minutes of play, the Blue Jackets had a 2-0 lead. In the second period, Raymond would get on the goal scorer sheet for the Red Wings, getting his 23rd of the year from Fabry and Patrick Kane, a power play goal to note, 2 minutes and 57 seconds into that frame. Sider would tie the game up at 2, getting his 8th of the year from Sherratt and Rasmussen, 4 minutes and 23 seconds in the period. After 40 minutes of play, we had 2 goals apiece. Marchenko would give the Columbus Blue Jackets a 3-2 lead, getting his 18th of the season from Werenski and Johnny Gaudreau, a power play goal, 4 minutes and 26 seconds in that period. And just when it looked like the Blue Jackets might be able to steal this game, Luke Raymond would get his second goal of the game, tying the game up at 3. For Raymond, that would be his 24th of the year from Patrick Kane and Shane Gothisberg. Patrick Kane would then get the game-winning goal in overtime, getting his 15th goal of the season from DeBrusk and Sider. So the Red Wings were down 2-0. They were down 3-2, but they managed to pull this one off in overtime to secure a 4-3 win. With the victory, they're sitting at 35, 28, and 6, right on the cusp of making the playoffs. But again, there's still X amount of games left for all these teams, so only time will tell. As for the Blue Jackets, it's very likely that they will miss the postseason for the 4th consecutive season, as they're clearly in last place in the Eastern Conference with a record of 23, 34, and 12. Okay, the next matchup took place in New Jersey. We had the Devils taking on the Penguins. So 2 teams from the Metropolitan Division duking it out for 2 points. All right, let's take a look and see how this game went. So in the first, Mercer would kick things off for the Devils, getting his 18th of the year, assisted by Nosek and Palat. 5 minutes and 35 seconds into that frame. After 20 minutes of play, the Devils had a 1-0 lead. Pettersson would tie the game up 7 minutes and 16 seconds into that second period. For Pettersson, that would be his 4th of the year from Bunting and Raquel. Meyer would give the Devils a 2-1 lead with 5 minutes and 40 seconds to go in the frame. A power play goal for Meyer, that would be his 20th of the season from Luke Hughes and Jesper Brett. After 40 minutes of play, the Devils had a 2-1 lead. In the third period, Holtz would increase the lead to 3-1. For Holtz, that would be his 15th of the season, assisted by both of the Hughes brothers, 8 minutes and 58 seconds into that frame. Mercer would then get his second goal of the game, his 19th of the year, assisted by Nosek and Palat. Meyer would increase the lead to 5-1 with a power play goal with 3 minutes and 7 seconds to go on the clock. For Meyer, that would be his second goal of the game, his 21st of the season from Bratt and Jack Hughes. Rust would cut the deficit to 5-2 with 2 minutes and 45 seconds to go on the clock. For Rust, that would be his 21st goal of the season, assisted by Sidney Crosby. Unfortunately for the Penguins, they were not able to mount a comeback, so 5-2 is where we would stand at the end of regulation. So with the victory, the Devils are sitting at 33, 32, and 4, and after the loss, the Penguins are 30, 29, and 9. Alrighty, the next matchup took place in New York as we have the Rangers, and they were playing against the Winnipeg Jets. Alrighty, so there was no scoring in the first. We have to jump ahead to the second period where Mark Scheifele would kick things off for the Jets. For Scheifele, he'd get his 20th of the year from Iafallo and Nate Schmidt, 4 minutes and 4 seconds into that frame. Wenberg would get his first goal as a member of the New York Rangers. For Wenberg, that'd be his 10th of the year, assisted by Lafreniere and Roslovic, a power play goal, 9 minutes and 30 seconds into that frame. Kyle Connor will get a power play goal of his own. For Connor, that would be his 30th of the year from Sean Monahan and Tyler Toffoli, and that goal happened with 6 minutes and 42 seconds to go on the clock. Scheifele would add a late goal in that period, getting his second of the game, his 21st of the season with 2 minutes and 5 seconds to go on the clock. After 40 minutes of play, the Jets had a 3-1 lead. Lafreniere would cut the deficit to 3-2 late in that third period, just 1 minute and 54 seconds to go. For Lafreniere, that'd be his 20th of the season from Fox and Trocheck. And then Scheifele would get an empty netter, increasing the lead to 4-2. For Scheifele, it'd be a natural hat trick, assisted by Morrissey and Sean Monahan. And that goal happened with just 9 seconds to go on the clock. So 4-2 would be the final score in favor of the Winnipeg Jets. So with the victory, the Jets are sitting at 44, 19, and 5 in a very close race in that Central Division for between them, the Stars, and the Avalanche. And as for the Rangers, despite the loss, they're 45, 20, and 4, still sitting first in that Metropolitan Division. Alrighty, now we're off to Philly. We have the Flyers taking on the Toronto Maple Leafs. So Owen Tippett would kick things off for the Flyers, just 19 seconds into that frame. For Tippett, that'd be his 25th of the season from York and Frost. So after 20 minutes of play, the Flyers had a 1-0 lead. Sanheim would score just under a minute into that second period. For Sanheim, that'd be his 9th of the year, assisted by Garnet Hathaway. Frost would increase lead to 3-0 with 3 minutes and 34 seconds to go on the clock. For Frost, that would be his 12th of the season, assisted by Attard. So after 40 minutes of play, the Flyers had a 3-0 lead. William Nylander would strike in the third, finally getting the Maple Leafs on the board. For Nylander, that'd be his 37th goal of the year from Matthews and Tavares, a power play goal to note. Tyler Bertuzzi would cut the deficit to 3-2, just over halfway through that period. For Bertuzzi, that'd be his 14th of the year from Riley and Tavares. Scott Lawton would increase the lead to 4-2, exactly 7 minutes left on the clock. For Lawton, that'd be his 11th goal of the year, assisted by Owen Tippett. John Tavares would cut the deficit to 4-3, getting his 22nd goal of the season from Bertuzzi and Austin Matthews, with 2 minutes and 10 seconds to go on the clock, but that's as close as the Leafs would come back in this game. So 4-3 would be the final score in favor of the Philadelphia Flyers. So with the victory, the Flyers are 35, 26, and 8, still sitting third in that Metropolitan Division. And speaking of being third in their division, the Leafs are still third in the Atlantic with a record of 38, 20, and 9. Alrighty, now we're off to New York. We have the Islanders, and they're playing host to the Carolina Hurricanes. So Seth Jarvis would kick things off in the first period with 6 minutes and 12 seconds to go on the clock. 7 minutes and 12 seconds to go on the clock. For Jarvis, that would be his 24th of the year from Shea and Gensel. He would strike yet again with 5 minutes and 7 seconds to go, getting a second of the game, his 25th of the year from Gensel and Slavin. Nietzsche would increase the lead to 3-0 with just 2 seconds remaining on the clock. For Nietzsche, that'd be his 22nd goal of the year from Kuznetsov and Brady Shea. And that goal happened with 2 seconds to go on the clock. I think I may have said that already. Anyway, so the Hurricanes had a 3-0 lead heading into the second period. There was no scoring in the second, so we had to go ahead and jump ahead to the third period, where Palmieri would finally get the Islanders on the board, getting his 22nd of the season from Nelson and Bo Horvat with 4.5 minutes into the frame. Gensel would strike with 3 minutes and 38 seconds to go on the clock. For Gensel, that'd be his 24th of the year from Sebastian Aho. 4-1 would be the final score in favor of the Hurricanes. So with the victory, Carolina is sitting at 43, 20, and 6. And after the loss, the Islanders are 29, 24, and 15. For the Hurricanes, they are still sitting second in that Metropolitan Division. Alrighty, now we're off to Nashville, where we have the Predators, and they're playing host to the San Jose Sharks. Alrighty. This was a bit of a one-sided affair, a pretty high-scoring one at that as well. So in the first period, Yossi would kick things off for the Predators with 8 minutes and 42 seconds to go on the clock. For Yossi, that'd be his 18th of the year from McDonough and Forsberg. Granlund would score, tying the game up at 1 with 2 minutes and 42 seconds to go on the clock. For Granlund, that would be his 10th of the season from Costin and Ferrero. So after 20 minutes of play, it was all tied up at 1. Ferrero would give the Sharks a 2-1 lead, getting his second of the season from Bordelot and Bailey. 5 minutes and 46 seconds in the period. After this, it was all Nashville. So Zucker would tie the game up 9 minutes and 37 seconds into the frame. For Zucker, that'd be his 11th of the year from Sissons and McDonough. McCarron would give the Predators a 3-2 lead with 4 minutes and 34 seconds to go on the clock. For McCarron, that'd be his 10th goal of the year from Sherwood and Yossi. Evangelista would increase lead to 4-2 with 2 minutes and 10 seconds to go. For Evangelista, that'd be his 15th goal of the year from Yossi and Forsberg. The Predators, after 40 minutes, had a 4-2 lead. In the third period, McCarron would get his second goal of the game, assisted by Sherwood. 9 minutes and 25 seconds remaining on the clock. Jankowski would increase the lead to 6-2 with 5 minutes and 47 seconds to go. For Jankowski, that would be his fourth of the season, assisted by Barry and Beauvillier, if I'm pronouncing that name correctly. Philip Forsberg would increase the lead to 7-2 with 5 minutes and 17 seconds to go on the clock. For Forsberg, that'd be his 36th of the year from Nyquist and McDonough. And they weren't done scoring there. Novak would increase the lead to 8-2. For Novak, that'd be his 15th goal of the season from Sherwood and Jankowski. So 8 goals were scored on the Sharks. But I mean, they've had 10 goals scored on them twice already this season, so this really shouldn't be a shock. 8-2 would be the final score in favor of the Predators. With the victory, the Predators are sitting at 40, 25, and 4. At this point, they still have the number one wildcard spot locked in place. As for the San Jose Sharks, 16, 45, and 7 is where they stand at the end of regulation. Alrighty, Colorado and St. Louis will be the next matchup that we take a look at. Okay, let's take a look and see just how this game went. So in the first, Mikko Rantanen would kick things off for the Colorado Avalanche. For Rantanen, that would be his 35th goal of the year from McKinnon and Makar, 6 minutes and 36 seconds in the period. Walker would tie the game up 8 minutes and 48 seconds in that same frame. For Walker, that would be his 6th goal of the year, assisted by Paranovich and Justin Falk. After 20 minutes of play, we were all tied up at 1. In the second, Torpachenko would get the Blues on the board, giving them a 2-1 lead. For Torpachenko, that'd be his 14th goal of the season from Falk and Walker. Casey Middlestat would tie the game up 6 minutes and 41 seconds in that frame. For Middlestat, that would be his 16th goal of the year from Gerard and Jonathan Drouin. The captain, Braden Shen, would give the Blues a 3-2 lead, 8 minutes and 43 seconds into that frame. For Shen, that'd be his 15th of the season from Jake Neighbors. Rantanen would tie the game up with a power play goal, 1 minute and 14 seconds to go on the clock. For Rantanen, that would be his 2nd goal of the game, his 36th of the year from Drouin and Nichushkin. So after 40 minutes of play, we were all tied up at 3. In the third period, Mikko Rantanen would get a natural hat-trick, getting his 3rd of the game, his 37th of the season from Nichushkin, 4 minutes and 15 seconds into that frame. So the Avalanche would escape with a 4-3 victory over the Blues. With the victory, Colorado is now 44, 20, and 5, still in the top 3 of that Central Division. And as for the Blues, 36, 30, and 3, they're still on the outside looking in when it comes to the postseason. Alrighty, the next matchup took place in Anaheim, where we have the Minnesota Wild as the visiting team taking on the Ducks. Alright, let's take a look and see just how this game went. So there's no scoring in the first. We have to jump ahead to the second, just 35 seconds into that second period. Ryan Hartman would kick things off for the Minnesota Wild, getting his 18th of the season from Foligno and Boldy. Merrill would increase the lead to 2-0, roughly 2 minutes into that period. For Merrill, that would be his 4th of the year from Gaudreau and Knudsten. Wow, I can't even pronounce that name. Kaprizov would increase the lead to 3-0 with 9 minutes and 10 seconds to go. For Kaprizov, that would be his 36th goal of the year from Hartman and Boldy. In the third period, just a lone goal to report, Lucchini would get on the goal score sheet. For Lucchini, that would be his 2nd goal of the season from Beckham, and that goal happened with 6 minutes and 57 seconds to go in the game. So the Wild would leave Minnesota with a shutout. 4-0 would be the final score. With the victory, the Wild are 34, 27, and 8, still on the outside looking in when it comes to the playoffs. As for the Ducks, 23, 43, and 3, it's now looking like it's going to be 6 straight seasons without any postseason action in Anaheim. Okay. The next matchup took place between the Blackhawks and the Kings. All right. Let's take a look and see just how this game went. So in the first period, Lafayette would open up scoring for the Kings. 7 minutes and 57 seconds to go on the clock. For Lafayette, that'd be his 11th of the year, assisted by Lizotte and Pierre-Luc Dubois. Nick Foligno would tie the game up with a power play goal. 5 minutes and 30 seconds to go on the clock. For Foligno, that'd be his 16th of the year from Kurashev and Seth Jones. After 20 minutes of play, you're all tied up at 1. In the second period, Garikov would give the Kings a 2-1 lead, 9.5 minutes into that frame. For Garikov, that'd be his 5th of the season from Kopitar and Kepi. Kopitar would strike, getting his 21st of the season from Adrian Kepi. 8 minutes and 8 seconds to go on the clock. Kopitar would strike late in that second period. For Kopitar, that'd be his second goal of the game, his 22nd of the year from Kepi and Kevin Fiala. And that goal happened with just 52 seconds to go on the clock. After 40 minutes of play, the Kings had a 4-1 lead. In the third, Deneau would increase the lead to 5-1, getting his 16th of the year from Moore and Kevin Fiala, 5 minutes and 47 seconds into that frame. Korchinski would cut the deficit to 5-2 with 5 minutes and 44 seconds to go on the clock. For Korchinski, that would be his 5th goal of the year from Kurashev and Connor Bedard. Trevor Lewis would score late in that third period with just 2 minutes and 50 seconds to go on the clock. For Lewis, that would be his 8th of the year from Dubois and Garikov. So 6-2 would be the final score in favor of the Kings. With the victory, they're 35-22-11, still sitting third in that Pacific Division. As for the Chicago Blackhawks, 19-45-5 is their record after this matchup. Okay, still got a few games left to go. The Sabres went into Vancouver to take on the Canucks. Okay, let's take a look and see just how this went. So in the first, Garland would kick things off for the Canucks, getting his 14th of the year from Quinn Hughes and Elias Pettersson, 4 minutes and 6 seconds into that frame. In the second period, Elias Pettersson would get a power play goal, 6 minutes and 12 seconds to go on the clock. For Pettersson, that'd be his 32nd goal of the year from Miller and Quinn Hughes. So heading into the third period, the Canucks had a 2-0 lead. Rasmus Dahlin would get the Sabres on the board, 9 minutes and 23 seconds into that frame. For Dahlin, that'd be his 16th goal of the year from Owen Power and Alex Tuck. Elias Pettersson would strike, getting his second goal of the game with 1 minute and 51 seconds to go on the clock. For Pettersson, that'd be his 33rd of the year from JT Miller. Rasmus Dahlin would score, getting his second goal of the game as well. For Dahlin, that'd be his 17th of the season from Tage Thompson and Alex Tuck. That goal happened with just 22 seconds to go on the clock, and as you can figure, it's pretty hard to get a goal to tie it up that late in the period. So 3-2 would be the final in favor of the Vancouver Canucks. So with the win, the Canucks are sitting at 43-18-8, still sitting first in that Pacific Division. As for the Buffalo Sabres, 33-32-5 is where they stand at the end of this matchup. Okay, and I believe there's one more game to look at, and that is the Tampa Bay Lightning and the Vegas Golden Knights. A very busy Tuesday, to say the least. Okay, let's take a look and see how this game went and who won. So in the first, Marchessault would kick things off for the Lightning, getting his 38th of the season from Shea Theodore and Jack Eichel, 1 minute and 14 seconds into the opening period. Cirelli would get a shorthanded goal with exactly 7 minutes into that frame, assist by Brandon Hagel. For Cirelli, that'd be his 15th goal of the year. Anthony Duclair would break the tie with 9 minutes and 23 seconds to go. For Duclair, that'd be his 19th goal of the season, assisted by Nikita Kucherov. In the second period, just a lone goal to report. Brett Howden would tie the game up, getting his 6th of the season from Kolser, and that goal happened with 3 minutes and 8 seconds to go on the clock. After 40 minutes of play, we had 4 goals, 2 aside, 2 each. In the third period, Braden Point would break the tie, getting his 37th goal of the year, assisted by Kucherov and Steven Stamkos, a power play goal, 4 minutes and 52 seconds into that frame. Brett Hutton would score, getting his second goal of the season from Kolser, 8 minutes and 16 seconds in the game. Braden Point would get his second goal of the game, his 38th of the season from Kucherov and Radish, with 7 minutes and 46 seconds to go on the clock. And then Kucherov would ice the game at that point, getting his 41st goal of the season from Sharanek and Steven Stamkos. And that goal happened with 1:09 to go on the clock. So with that victory, the Lightning are 37-25-6, still have the number one wildcard spot in the Eastern Conference. And despite the loss, Vegas is still in a playoff position themselves. 36-25-7 is their record. They still have the number two wildcard spot in the Western Conference. All right, that takes care of my recap from Tuesday's night of hockey. As always, if you're new to this channel and you like this type of content, please feel free to hit the sub button. I'd be very grateful and very appreciative. Until next time, take care.